symptoms of attention deficit disorder in children as young as 5 years old. The greener a child's everyday environment is, the more manageable are the symptoms of attention deficit disorder. And proximity of views of and daily exposure to natural settings increases children's ability to focus and enhances cognitive abilities. So the more that you get children outdoors, the better they do academically. The easier it is for you to teach them. That's why I always say there's nothing that you can do indoors that you can't do outdoors, and children learn much better. Okay, we have this fear, we have what I call the Peter Pan syndrome. That if I let my child go outside and play and do this, they're going to go wild. They're going to be crawling from the trees, and they're going to be jumping and screaming. I'm not going to be able to teach them. I'm not going to be able to have circle time. I'm not going to be able to read to them. That is not true. Children are much more focused outdoors than they are indoors. Now, I always hear things like, well, I'm going to be teaching, and oh my gosh, there's a fire truck that's going to drive by, or a plane's going to fly over, and the kids are going to be distracted, or butterflies are going to fly by. Yes, you use the teachable moment. So many times as teachers, we are so worried about that stupid schedule that we miss teachable moments. Think about it. I have seen people sit there during reading time and read a story. And I remember it very specifically. It was the president's birthday, and they were reading a story about Abraham Lincoln. And it was not an age-appropriate book for them. The kids were bored out of their mind. But the teacher was hell-bent on finishing that book so that she could check off that thing on the schedule. She could check off that thing on the evaluation. Rather than realizing that kids were not interested. They wanted something else. And so many times we worry about that. We don't have to finish the book. We can talk about the airplane that flew over. We can talk about the butterfly that flew by. We can talk about the little ant that's walking up Mike's leg. Okay? Because those are teachable moments. That's what we're teachers for. We're teachers. When a child asks us a question, what is that plane? What is that sound of the fire engine? Or, oh my gosh, yesterday my grandpa had to go to the hospital and the fireman came and the ambulance came. Or, oh my gosh, there's an ant crawling up my hand. You know what that is? That is a child asking you to teach them. That's what it is. But so many times we're bothered by it. And I've seen it. I've seen it especially during circle time and reading time. Where a teacher's reading a book and somebody asks a question, or someone gets a little bit too close like this and is looking at, no, you got to go sit back down. Crisscross applesauce, don't be moving off your butt. And misses that moment. That child right there is telling you, teach me, I'm entertained, I'm enthralled, I am just totally into what you're doing. But so many times we see that as, okay, sit back in the group, don't touch, don't do that stuff. On the flip side, kids start fidgeting around, we see that as disciplinary problems, rather than the fact that they are not engaged in that activity. How many of you guys have watched a TV show, and maybe about 10 minutes into it, you go, man, this isn't what I want, I'm going to change it. Right? Why do you do that? Because you're not engaged with that activity. It's boring, it's not what you expected. And think about it. We ask kids to do what we as adults would not do. Think if I came into this workshop and I said, okay everybody, crisscross applesauce. Nobody move, nobody talk to anybody next to you, nobody touch anybody next to you, no doodling, no writing stuff, just pay straight attention. Would you guys enjoy this workshop? No. But that's what we ask kids to do. We ask kids to do that every single day of our lives as teachers. And that is sometimes it's wrong. How many of you guys have heard of Bev Boss? Okay, Bev Boss. Okay, if you haven't heard of Bev Boss, man, you need to find her out. Go to her workshops. She's a very good friend of mine. I teach a lot at her conferences. She's like a grandmother to my daughter. I visited her school a number of times, but she says something. She says that when we plan an event, when we plan an activity, we need to ask ourselves, who does it benefit? Does it benefit me, or does it benefit the child? And if it benefits me, then maybe I really need to rethink that whole activity and think about how it's going to benefit the child. So ask yourself that question when you're doing it. Am I teaching indoors because it's easier for me, or it's easier for the child? What are we doing for the children? And that's what this whole thing is about. Is that whole idea is that sometimes we need to get dirty. Sometimes we need to go sometimes above and beyond. I know it's a job. But if you're not in love with this job, then maybe you need to think about something different. I mean, honestly. I mean, I love my job. I've been doing I was a police officer for 10 years before I did this. Okay? I've been doing this for 11 years. I love this job. Many times I get asked to lecture all over the world. And many times I don't get paid for it. Many times I go to centers and teach and talk to them about how to implement the outdoor classroom. I don't get paid for that because I see it as my passion for children. And I'm so disgusted, for lack of a better word, at the state of how we are educating children and teaching children today. And how we are not valuing children. We're not allowing them to play. We're not allowing them to do things. We're so caught on this whole idea of getting them ready for school. We don't need to get kids ready for school. We need to get schools ready for kids. The bottom line. Okay. So let's talk about some of them. Kids who play outside are happier and get along better with others. Think about it. Think about when you were a kid. How you were outside playing with your friends. The social interaction, the emotional interaction that occurred during your outdoor playtime. Kids need that. Kids are lacking social skills. They're not able to read cues. They're not able to problem solve. They're not able to make rules and all these things because they lack the ability of those social skills to play. Where do they play? On their PlayStation. On their Wii. Okay? On the computer, on YouTube. Okay? They are not doing that. I am amazed to see how many preschool kids have cell phones. I see it all the time. And you think it's funny, but it is true. I see preschool children with cell phones and texting. You go to some neighborhoods and you'll see it. It is amazing how many children have cell phones. Green plants and vistas reduce stress among highly stressed children in rural areas, with the results most significant where there are greatest number of plants, green views, and access to natural play environments. Green is good from a stress management. Think about it. Many hospitals have now gardens where patients could go outside and sit because it's a stress relief. Okay? Daily recess opportunities result in better classroom behavior for children. The more time children spend outdoors, the better they behave in the classroom. Okay? Many times I think that ADHD is related to our not allowing children to play. Think about how much recess time we had as kids. Think about how much time we played outside. We are reducing that more and more for children, and then we're wondering why we're having disciplinary problems, why we're having attention deficit problems with children. It's because we're screwing around with Mother Nature. We're screwing around with biology. And ultimately, we are going to lose. Kids who play outside are healthier. Unstructured or flea pad outdoors can increase physical activities for children. We need to be cognizant about that. How many of you have overweight children in your preschool class? It is reaching epidemic proportions. Children with type 2 diabetes, heart issues, stomach issues. They're not able to be physically active for more than a few minutes before they're out of breath. Many times, those kids, their only opportunity to be physically active is in your classroom. Because they're not physically active at home. Maybe they live in a bad neighborhood where they're not able to go outside. Maybe they live in an apartment complex where they don't have a yard. Maybe their parents are at home, so they have to stay. They have 2 working parents, so they have to stay indoors. Okay? So many times, the only time that kids are being active are at your centers. And 15 minutes a day out of a 12-hour day, that's horrible. Horrible. Think about how obese that child will be by the time they become an adult. They won't want to do physical activity because it's never been taught to them. Children will be smarter, better able to get along with others, and healthier and happier when they have regular opportunities for free and unstructured play in the out of doors. Okay? Nature play encourages children to learn about the wonders and secrets of the natural world. Elements of play promoted by nature are climbing, rolling, inventing loose parts, putting on performances, socializing in quiet areas, maneuvering around interesting pathways, interaction with water and sand and earth, hiding, sensory. All these things are so vital for children and teaches them things. From an academic standpoint, you could relate outdoor play to academics in a very easy pathway. There's no such thing as bad weather, just the wrong amount of clothing. These are centers where they've made the effort. Going outside in the rain. How many of you take your children outside when it rains? Okay? For the people that don't, why don't you?
Parents, the wall, it depends the wall. The clothing that they wear to school is not appropriate.
Okay, so how do you address some of those issues? There's 3 issues that have come up. Parents, principal or administrator, and clothing. So how do we, if we were all brainstorming, we're all sitting here trying to brainstorm a solution, what would be some of the solutions, or what would be some of the tips that you would give somebody if they had an issue with parents and you wanted to let the kids go outside in the rain?
I would have extra clothes in the classroom, the ones that are the plastic, so we can get wet.
Rain slickers?
Yeah, and more thick what they have inside.
You can get those at Big Lots for like $2-3 bucks.
And notify the parents ahead of time that you're doing it, so they're aware of it.
Okay? So you educate the parents.
Yes.
You educate. Now how many of you have heard, well, I don't want my kid to go outside because he's going to get cold. And he's going to get sick. Okay? So how do you address that? Educate the parents. Maybe you send them home a leaflet before it becomes raining. Or the first day of the rain season, you send home a little thing that talks about outdoors is okay. You actually are going to get sick indoors. It's better for you from a healthy standpoint. Educate them. Now, are you going to convince everybody? No.
No.
You're not. Okay, there are probably many people in here that disagree with a lot of things that I say. But my job isn't here to convince everybody here. My job is to give you some food for thought to think about some ideas. Yes?
We just had a parent meeting at our center.
Okay.
And the #1 complaint was children getting wet at the water table. Parents don't want their children to get wet.
Okay.
So we have children with us and we don't want them.
Okay.
We have small. No.
So, how do you address that? How do you address that?
Keep doing it.
In our curriculum, this is part of it.
Okay.
They need to be exposed to this
Right.
in order to grow and to develop.
Maybe you get them, maybe they have a change of clothes. And you taught them, okay, as soon as they get wet, we'll take them in and change them. It's a matter of educating people. Now, are you going to have pushback? Yes. You're going to have pushback sometimes. You're going to have parents that say, you know what? Da 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 da. So does that mean that you make every other child suffer for that one child? Because that one child can't do it? Now, do you feel sorry? Yes, you do. You try to integrate it as best you can. But you make 20-something other kids not allowed to have water time or get dirty because of one child? No, that's unfair. That's unfair. Just like if you had one child that was disruptive, would you let that child be disruptive still? No. You would take that child aside and discipline him and handle it the proper way. Your hand was up, so I want to get you, then I'll get you next.
I was just going to say something about wash their clothes or dry their clothes wet for them so that they don't, they feel like, they can be or something, you can wash their dry.
You have solutions. Children do not have to come to school like they're dressed for Sunday best. Okay? You could get, they have dirty, they could have alternate clothes. And maybe there's socioeconomic issues. Maybe that family can't afford clothes. So what do? You could go down to the thrift store. You can buy some clothes. You can buy some outfits that allows them the opportunity. You could have a clothes room. You can have an area for children to be able to have some clothes, some extra clothes. Is it expensive? No, it's not expensive.